Okay, well, let's get started. Welcome. So I'm just going to start with an introduction. I'm hoping that you can all see the link in the chat, which is to the interactive file. So join that file, and that has the agenda and everything that we're going to be talking about today. Alright, so the first thing that we've got in the first few minutes is an interactive icebreaker. So it's optional to answer these questions, but what you could tell us is what stage are you at in your career? Secondly, what frustrates you about the job search process in UX? Do you suspect that recruiters don't have a clear idea of the difference between UX and UI? And what's most important to you to cover today? So if you could just grab a post-it note, pull it down, just pop in a few comments there, because that will help set the discussion for what we're going to go through later today as well. Okay. And so while we're waiting, hi Ralph. So first thing, the interactive icebreaker. Yeah, some jobs in UX, it depends where you are, but some jobs they expect you to be a UI as well. And you might see some jobs that have a UI/UX job description. They can be quite annoying for us pure UX people. Okay, so if everybody can continue to fill in those post-it notes, and I'll just get onto a bit of an introduction about myself. Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Rachael Page. I have shared my LinkedIn link with you before, but maybe I should actually pop that into this file. So I started out with a degree in product design in the UK, and then I moved through the job titles of programmer, business analyst. I moved over to Australia from the UK, and then I worked as a graphic artist for a newspaper, which is a bit like being a graphic designer, and then I moved into web design and eventually UX design, and I worked in advertising for many years. So the great thing about that was I worked for a big variety of clients on a huge variety of projects, everything from digital banners to products, apps, websites, everything like that. So what I'm mainly going to go through today is basically a portfolio clinic, and a couple of people are here today to present their portfolios as well. And so what I want to talk to you about is that when you're putting yourself forward, the main document that you're putting forward to people is your portfolio. And so this has to be pretty good. The problem with this is that you are going to have your portfolio viewed by both inexperienced recruiters who don't really know what UX is, and they might actually think it's the same as UI, whereas it isn't. And also the other major audience, or is everything up to a UX manager. And those people are highly knowledgeable, or they tend to be highly knowledgeable. And so the more experienced people are going to be more looking at your UX process, and they won't be so fooled by just pretty UI. And I came across something this week, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And what this thing is it's a cognitive bias where individuals with low competence in a specific domain tend to overestimate their abilities in that domain. Basically, people are blind to their own incompetencies, sometimes stunningly so. And this is unfortunately a big thing in the UX industry, because a lot of people think they know what UX is, but they don't tend to actually know until they've really done a UX course, at least a short one. So the major issues in the industry is that you've got varying people viewing your portfolio. Some of them are really inexperienced. And if you're going to be judged as an aesthetic designer, which might not even be true, you do need to have a high standard of visual design in your portfolio just to get past those ignorant low-level recruiters. So it also never hurts to have a high level of visual and informational design in your portfolio, not just because you'll communicate better, but it will also grab attention and especially at the lower levels it will encourage people to read on. So within your portfolio you've got a couple of things. There's the content, which I would describe as your UX process. How good is the concept that you've been designing? You know, is it a sensible business concept, for example? So there's the value of the content, and then there's the presentation of it. And both of those things are important in your portfolio. The other thing that you should bear in mind when you're creating your portfolio and applying for jobs is that those recruiters and hiring managers are usually swamped with CVs and folios. They might be opening 10, 50 or even up to 200 portfolios a day. So you really need to bring it to them and wow them, not just with the content of your folio, but with the experience. And that could be just simple things like actually put your full name and your job title on the file name of your CV. Actually put the link to your portfolio in your CV and make sure that it stands out. If it's just buried in piles of text, people are not going to see your portfolio link and they're not going to click on it. And also it does really help if you put your LinkedIn link on your portfolio as well. So I'm hoping I've still got everyone. Looks like you're still there. Great. It's a bit of a one-way conversation at the moment, but we'll be opening it up in a minute. So think about the experience that those hiring managers are going to have when they open up the documents that you're going to send them. Don't give them blockers. Make sure that you apply the UX principles to the experience that they're going to have as well. And so if your portfolio homepage, for example, really wows people with a beautiful product design and even a simple animation at the top, you're going to stand out far and above the other people that those people are looking at that day. Okay, so I'm going to look at some examples of good and bad portfolios and why they're good and bad. And I'm also going to encourage you all to either jump in the chat or, you know, say what you think about these portfolios as well. And every week I pick a couple of bad ones and a couple of good ones. Now the difference with this week's portfolios is that all 4 of these portfolios were put forward by an experienced recruiter as being really good examples of portfolios, and I kind of disagreed, and I'm going to show you why. So the first one I've got here, I'm going to jump straight into a project by this person. Okay, so this one's called Powered by Readers. I don't think that's very descriptive. It's good that he's got a time frame and a customer. I'm not quite sure what the customer is. I think that might be a bookshop. And his role was research and design. So I don't know why these diagrams have been put in here. I don't believe they're adding much. And the first thing that he says is the problem is users are not engaged and book sales are down. That's not a normal brief. It makes me suspect that this project is a portfolio project and not a project for a real client. But the next thing that really concerns me about this problem brief is that they've been asked to apply gaming principles to the solution. Now, why would you pick a specific kind of a solution to solve a problem before you've even done surveys or user research to say that book readers enjoy gaming? Because I would argue that possibly they do not. And that's what makes me think that this is a portfolio project and not a real client project. There are other various problems with this. This text is really huge, not very attractive. In general, the design is not very attractive. And I see a problem here with this diagram. Does anyone want to jump in and tell me what's wrong with this diagram? I'm also going to click on this diagram and I'm going to zoom right in. Tell me in the chat, guys, do you see any problems with that? I'm going to explain it. So all of the text, and I have a huge screen in front of me right now, everything on there is unreadable except for the first post-it note, and even when I do click into it, it's pixelated and it's really difficult to see. And there are no real design must stay on brand. that's the purpose of a brand designer, really. It's not coming across as a really thorough UX process. We've got another unreadable diagram there, and essentially the information design and the visual design of this is just not that great, even despite the fact that a recruiter actually thinks that this is good. This is also not looking great. I'm finding it very difficult to discern what's actually happened here. They're not drawing me in with a story. Okay, so let's look at the next one. We've got, I wanted to show you the homepage on this one first, which I also don't think is great. You know what is good? He's got an attention grabbing animation at the top. Nice, but these graphics do not look great, and that's all he's got there. So there's also no way to contact him except for this email. There's no link out to LinkedIn. That's not good either. Okay, we'll go to the next one. So this one's alexlacas.com. This red is killing me straight away. Really not good. This text here at the top is tiny. It's not broken up, and to be quite honest, I'm just not going to read that. So that's not great. And then the next thing is, we've got Peanut for Chrome, it says. Poll your LinkedIn network. I'm getting a lot of photographs here, but I'm not really seeing an awful lot of design. Concept design, UX design, UI design. I mean, this screen here is really a basic screen. It could be pulled out of a UI kit. Yeah, and this is all photographs. Now, that might be okay if it was a photographer's portfolio, but essentially this is the only actual UI design that I'm seeing of any worth on this screen. And whilst it's decently done, it's not stunning. And then we've got this massive copyright 2023 at the bottom, which looks like lemon yellow on bright red. I really don't like that. If anybody's got any comments on that, let me know. Okay, so let's move on to something a bit better. So we've got Bryn Taylor. I was going to say Brian, but it's Bryn. Now this looks really nice. Everything is readable. You can clearly see that this is a freelance product designer. There's a really simple animation there when you open the page. Nice. There's just a little bit of text here. This is just about enough so that somebody might actually read it. Plus, they're talking about where they've most recently been, and the most recent job and the previous job. And you can contact them easily as well, which is great. They've got some logos there, but they've not really explained that they were possibly clients. And then this work image is really nice. At least it's got 3 screens there. Everything looks fine. It looks like unique work. And they've also said it's an onboarding employees app. Great. Please describe what the app is. Now I know whether I want to click on it or not. And then they've got, I think, 4 or 6 more projects down there, all clearly showing the kinds of work that they've done. All looks really nicely laid out, great white space, examples of work. And then at the bottom, they've got some blog posts, interviews and side projects. That's really great that they've got side projects as well. So you can really get to know this person. Again, they've got the about at the bottom with a bit more information at the top, which is great. They've also got experience here, which obviously would probably match what they've got on LinkedIn as well. You can see a full CV. That's really good as well. They've clearly listed out all their skills. I might argue that this text is a bit too big, possibly smaller than skills, or make skills a bit bigger and all of these a bit smaller, because it's kind of hard to read. And there aren't many skills. You could have skills in categories, might be better. And then we've got interests in image style, which is quite nice. But what's really good about this is they've also got testimonials here as well, with the person's name and role, which is really important. And you can skip through those. Just shows that they've somehow whether it's a template website or whatever, that's pretty good. And then they're inviting you to get in touch at the bottom with all of their links. Excellent. I think this is a really good example, and you can just drop your email in and subscribe to them as well. He's got the photograph of himself right at the bottom though. I might say that might be a bit better at the top, but essentially he's really spot on. So I feel like this person's really nailed this portfolio and is really a professional. And so on to the last good example. Just want to check, is everybody okay? After this we're going to have a presentation from some of our attendees tonight. So I'm not really loving the text choice here. Logo is interesting. They have got a link to their LinkedIn, which I'm going to talk about later after the presentations from people who are attending tonight. They're using a lot of different text styles here, I feel. I think that's 1, 2, 3 text styles just in the header and navigation. What's really good about this though is, again, they've got testimonials, really good in today's quite competitive job market. The work projects, it's good that they've got it there. I'm not really loving the design of these, but they have got an interesting mouse over effect going there. And then they've got work together. Skills listed out, similar to the last one, really good. Need help, get in touch. And here we go, that's pretty nice. So let's go into one of the work projects quickly. I guess this is their main project. Can't see that. That's okay that it's under a it looks like all of their projects are under a password. No, so I can't actually view any of their work right there, so that's not ideal, but some people do need to keep all of their work confidential. Okay, does anybody have any opinions about those portfolios? Which was your favourite? Did you agree with me? Did you not agree with me? So Dan's going to introduce himself, where he's located, brief career background, what are Dan's goals, and basically talk us through your most recent portfolio design.
Sure. So, yes. Hi. So I'm Dan. I live in Boston. I've been working for about 4 years now, mostly in graphic design, and so now I'm trying to make a switch into UX. I did do some UX in college. That's actually one of that's the project I'll show in a second. Just trying to get back up to speed with all the skills and obviously redoing my portfolio as well. Okay, so this is my capstone project in college. I did this in a small team. Our final deliverable for this was basically a long, messy Google Doc. So what I've done recently is go through that and try to pull it apart and cut down the text and make it into a more attractive portfolio piece. So start with this image, which actually puts the final design mock-up on a kiosk and then into a stock image of a store. So the idea here I think is not to be able to see that in detail, but just to get a sense of what the final product conceptually would look like. And then a little description of what the project goal was, combining the best of in-store and online shopping experience, which I get into a little more in the research. Team was a small group of student designers and developers. My role was the UX research and design. The timeline, this was spring of 2019. There's definitely probably some things that would be different about it today, with the advancements in things like AI. Then a clickable table of contents, which this I just added. So if someone wants to jump right to like the design section and skip over all the research and planning, they could do that just by clicking there, or jump to final screen recording at the end. So start with the background, which is basically just a summary of the problem we're trying to solve, which is the challenges of promoting in-store experiences and finding value in those in the age where online shopping is more convenient. I try to keep it pretty short here and get right into the research. So we started with user surveys. We sent out a survey to the student body, and these were the most interesting results we got back, or the most relevant to this project at least. We found that despite the rise in online shopping, the vast majority still do usually want to shop in store. We also found that many people spend over an hour, one person even over 3 hours, typically in a clothing store, trying to shop and find the right items. And we found that their biggest difficulties were poorly organized items, struggling to match clothes, and lack of style and size options. So altogether, we found that people do still value in-store shopping, spend significant amounts of time there, and their biggest struggles are really just finding the right items. So based on this survey data, that kind of justified an approach that would focus on finding ways to use technology to enhance the in-store experience. So then we looked at what other stores were doing at the time. So some of the newest things were an app from Lowe's using AR to create in-store directions to find items more quickly. Sephora for fashion and makeup, for virtual makeup try-ons. Obviously, this is also all this technology has evolved since we did this project over the past few years. And then the big one was personalized fashion boxes delivered directly to people's homes, and that kind of became the big driver of our ideas. And then off the side here, I linked to another report. This is just kind of to show that like we did do our research and more thoroughly as well in looking at, I can pull this up. But yeah, the idea is not to really have anyone read through this whole long report. But yeah, this was a report that we read at the time. So I just summarized the main conclusion we drew from it here, which is algorithmically recommended products drive 3 times as many sales as standard product listings, just as further justification for the value of product like this. Planning section. So this is where I really kind of tried to distill lots and lots of paragraphs that we wrote into like 4 simple things. And what were the 4 things that we tried to plan for? We tried to plan for having the right hardware, which we ultimately decided on a large kiosk, have a nice big touchscreen, instead of something smaller like a smartphone app. Intelligent software, strong store partnerships. That's more theoretical because we never actually got to an implementation phase, but just showing that our thinking of the whole product's life cycle was there. And of course, a good selection of inventory as well. So then we start designing, and here I go through several wireframes and prototypes that we had. This first one is one I did, and it just kind of lays out the user flow. And then this is like an alternative to the results screen to try to simplify it a little bit more, switch from the grid layout to more of a carousel layout. Then I talk about some of the problems we noticed with that. There was too much complexity, putting too much on each screen. So then in the revised prototype here, we simplify it, only ask the user one question on each screen, make fewer options, large images to make it easier to decide. So that's kind of the wireframing phase. Then we explore different color palettes, and we end up settling on a very simple monochromatic one there. Try to just make it feel as simple and uncluttered as possible. And then on the side here, just a little side note about, we did a mock-up for the store employees app that they would actually use to fulfill orders from the kiosk. I don't go into detail on that, but just to mention that like we thought of that as well. Then here I kind of put a detailed description of like how we tested the prototype and why we changed from this like regenerate concept, which is up here, like where you select items and then regenerate the ones you like and don't like, and how we simplified that into just putting a new item button below each category, and the reasons why we did that. Then the development, this actually did get fully developed by the developers on the team. So this is I did simplify this a little bit, but it's still a very technical, wordy description of exactly how they built the algorithms and pulled in all the inventory data. I don't have the final working app anymore, unfortunately, but I do have this screen recording I took at the time, so it just kind of quickly goes through building an outfit. So they added some nice little animations. So you basically just answer one question at a time. Everything has images, and then it pulls in all the inventory and gives you an outfit. And then you can select sizes. If you don't like one of the choices, you just click new. The final design here doesn't totally match the what we had given them, just because of time constraints. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty close, and it works. So that is the project.
Okay, I think that was really excellent. Both the process that you went through seems to be really thorough, and also your presentation of it is really wonderful as well. I think that, I don't know, this is the third time that you've presented, and have you just done this one, Dan? Is this a new layout that you've created, sorry?
Yes, yeah, I just finished putting this new layout for this project together.
I honestly think that you've improved a huge amount, because the way that I feel like this is the perfect length. The content is fantastic. The process you've gone through, the presentation of it, nothing felt like too long that I couldn't read through it. Basically ready to go live if it's not already. Since you did build the app in the end, and you had programmers on the team, it would be nice to actually list out the other roles that were involved in the project at the top of the project page, because it just gives people a lot of context about, you know, where's this going to go. And you did actually build it, which is quite impressive. The clickable contents is fantastic. We've discussed that on this forum before. I like the fact that you attach the report, because it's just like when you're writing a white paper or an article or a PhD, whatever you're doing, if you're going to claim something, you really should always link out to your sources of information. And I mean, I also thought that the early part, your survey was so well presented. You just got over the 3 major points. Your infographics were totally spot on. I mean, I find it hard to say improve anything, you know. The only things I'm saying right now are just tiny little things that occurred to me, you know, but I don't think that's going to hold you back at all anyway. I love it. It's just so concise, so simple, great storytelling. Yeah, and the visual design was really good too. So we've got a bit of feedback from Ralph. Thank you for contributing. Ralph says everything, well, you can see this as well, everything was at its right point. The live prototype and being able to see the screens adds dynamism and makes it stand out from other flat portfolios. Definitely. And I like the fact specifically as well that you've got in your contents that they can jump to the end and just watch a video, which is quite nice. It's a bit of a shame the video isn't longer, or that you're not in it actually clicking around the product. If you do still have the Figma wireframes, you might want to link them up into a clickable prototype and actually embed them in the page alongside the video, so that people can understand the experience themselves. You know, that's always nice. But honestly, I think it's good to go as it is. That would just be, all the other stuff that I've mentioned is just, you could do this, or it would be nice to have. So that's it. I mean, Dan, that's amazing. I hope to see you do more projects that are just as good and come to tell me about them as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Dan. So I'm going to move on to the section of the session where I explain to you how to pimp your portfolio by some method or another. And what I mentioned before was having a LinkedIn icon which links out. So on your portfolio, you should have a LinkedIn icon that goes to your LinkedIn profile, but then you also should optimize your LinkedIn profile as well. And I'm going to give you a few pointers for that. I showed you the portfolio earlier. A couple of them did have links out to things like Behance and LinkedIn and things like that. It's very important to have those things really good. So talking about optimizing your LinkedIn profile, maybe I should pull one up while I'm talking about this. So just so that you can see where the sections are, I'm going to talk through my LinkedIn. When you're creating imagery for this banner area or the headshot of yourself, make sure that it's really professional. Obviously, make a strong first impression, smile. be yourself. But this banner is basically a big advertising space for yourself. So you can actually put your job title in there or show examples of your work. Actually, I'd prefer to change mine to have examples of my product design work. I think that would be a better use of the space rather than having two faces there. Also, keep your headline short and keep it really relevant to the job that you want. So if you're a junior UX designer, or that's the job that you're looking for, use that. Or midweight designer, UX, senior UX designer, or product designer. Also, make sure that you do list yourself close to or in the city where you'd like to work, even if you're not currently in that city right now, but it will help you be found by recruiters, and many jobs have visa restrictions and location restrictions, even if they're remote. So make sure that you do have your location there. Also, do customize your profile URL. You can see I've got Rachael page up there. That's easy to do. You don't have to pay to do it, and it makes you easy to find, and it's a shorter and nicer link to share on your CV or resume as well. Also, make sure that you've got contact info there. Make sure it's easy to contact you, and test that on a friend's LinkedIn, so to make sure that people can call you or email you or find your portfolio with those details, unless you really want to have privacy. But that's kind of a double-edged sword. You need to be contactable really when you're looking for work. So at the very least, have a link to your portfolio website with a contact form, so that you're not giving out your email address, but people can leave a message for you to contact them. And make it clear how people should contact you on this LinkedIn profile. So at the bottom of the description here, you can say, this description, you can say, contact me via. Okay, so I've got here folio, email, Skype, Rachael C page. Make sure that you set your industry to design. Keep your profile concise and relevant to your UX career. Use the featured and projects to brag about your achievements. So those things are up here. So here I've got Learn Design. I'm sharing 20 plus years of design knowledge in my new course. But of course, if I was looking for a job as a product designer, I'd be saying I just finished this project. Look how wonderful it is. You can see it on my portfolio here. Make sure that your work history reflects what you've put on your resume, and make sure you include keywords that you might find in a UX or UI or product design job description. In your current role, if freelancing, include things like user research study for a local fitness company, or website redesign for a therapy practice, or UX design for a real estate startup. So make sure that you're describing exactly what you're doing right now. Make sure that you spell and grammar check everything you produce thoroughly, not just your LinkedIn, but your CV, everything on your portfolio, because when people see typos, especially in design, it's very important that you have a high attention to detail. These professional recommendations can give you a huge boost, just like the testimonials that you can add to your portfolio. So here at the bottom, for example, I've got some recommendations. These are from my students, but I've also got older ones from workplaces. You can copy these and pop them onto your portfolio, and I really recommend that you do, as I talked through earlier with the couple of portfolios that were pretty good. And also request more recommendations from your colleagues and friends and family. And make LinkedIn work for you in your UX design job search. Go to the jobs area and search for UX and hiring, and save that link. Put in a task reminder to check it once a week and reach out. So what I mean by the jobs area is jobs. If you type in hiring UX, grab that link and put in a reminder once a week to go and check that link. So that's my tips on optimizing your LinkedIn portfolio. Okay, so moving on. Hope you're now. Oh, right. Talking about pimping your portfolio, I have created a really good standard portfolio structure, and I've made that available. And basically, what it is it's a great big long LinkedIn page, and essentially it goes through, okay, here's your design process, which would be like your contents page: discovery, understand user needs, ideation, prototype, etc. And then each of these sections are reflected below. Here's title 1, discovery, and then below discovery is understand user needs. And so within discovery, you've got competitive analysis, survey, and interviews. And so this is a standard UX project layout, and that has been made available to you at the end in the resources. The next thing, I'm just going to check up at the post-it notes what's the most important thing to cover today. Nobody's voted yet. If you want to vote in the chat, do vote. Okay. So yeah, just to go back to this point, most of the jobs for UX require you to be a designer. It does depend that the market that you're in. When I worked in Australia, oftentimes I would be hired as the UX designer, and they would separately hire a UI designer or have graphic designers in the team. They pretty much understood over there that those roles are separate. Since I've moved to Berlin, I see a lot of people who require UX and UI in the same role. And if you're applying for a product design role, you're going to be a lot more focused on the strategy of that product, and they're going to expect you to have some skills in both as well, although you'll be dealing a lot more with stakeholders and meetings and thinking about the whole of the product or various products which interact within that business. And you're more concerned with providing a good product at a good price to a market that finds that product valuable than you are just about receiving a brief, create this app. So it's a bigger focus when you're in product design. So yes, it is really frustrating that you do need to have design skills, but here in the resources at the bottom I do have some solutions to basically really quickly help you boost your design skills, as Dan has been doing over the last 2 to 3 months. He's learned a lot of things on a lot of various levels, really. Dan's improved the layout, the fonts, the typography, the white space, and a lot of these things are very, very simple things to learn. There are some basic fundamental principles that you need to know, both about visual design and layout, and also about informational design. Telling a story, make sure that you don't have too much text all at once on the page. And I would say Dan has really, really improved. And I think it's amazing that you've come along to these sessions and I've seen such a fantastic improvement. So I'm very happy about that. And what I'm going to show you next is the pros and cons of various portfolio platforms. Okay, so when you're thinking about a portfolio platform, you're either going to be a basic designer or a medium or advanced designer, and the same with coding. Some people are pretty okay with some basic coding, and some people say, God, no way, I do not want to code. Just make it easy for me. And other people are hand coding their portfolio in HTML. Honestly, I don't think that you should go the hardcore coding way, even if you're really good at coding. And the reason is because when you get into that design job, you're going to want to maintain your portfolio, and it's going to be hard enough for you to pull the content together, never mind hand code it all into your portfolio. So when you're a student, you might think, oh, I've got the time, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove my front end and coding development skills. I would advise against it, because down the track it's going to become a real chain around your neck. So talking about are things easy or hard, or cheap or expensive? So as students, oftentimes we're thinking about, don't want to pay several €100 a year for a portfolio, especially, I mean, that's a cost that you're going to have year after year after year. You could have that cost for 2 decades, so it really adds up. What I actually do with my portfolio is I've just got a free Wix portfolio, and I bought a domain name at GoDaddy, and I just point the domain name through the DNS records to my very long Wix portfolio website URL, And so my portfolio is free. There are some other things the ways that you can have a free portfolio, and some of those are, you can use Notion, which is completely free. So the other one that's, I think, completely free is Firebase free hosting. The only problem with that is it requires coding skills. You only got 1 gigabyte a month and 10 gigabytes data transfer. So after that you do have to pay. It could be a pretty complicated way to go. So probably not the best way to go. So I'm going to very briefly talk you through these platforms. So I've organised it into different types. So you've got the free platforms, which are not a standalone website. So you can't have myname.com, but you certainly could buy myname.com and point it to your Behance website. So that is one way to do it. And now the benefit with these is that they're social, so you can get found. But the bad thing is it's not a standalone thing. So I would say that the best one for a UX or product designer is Behance. The reason is because Dribbble has just screenshots, which are, postcard size basically, and they're just flat, and they're not a good way to get across a product design. So a product design is not just a flat graphic design or a flat web design. A product design has user flows in it, and you need to communicate those user flows. So a flat postcard sized image is just not good for that. So that's why I would discount Dribbble. If you want more than just postcard sized shots or more than one, you have to pay as well, so it's really not great. And the other one is Coraflop. I just didn't think Coraflop was that great because Behance looks better. So if you want to get started, quickly go with Behance. And then the next section is paid niche UX folios. The best one out of these is uxfol.io. Yeah, so this one's reasonably priced and the folios look reasonably good. With all the other ones in that yellow category, niche UX folio, they tend to be expensive and they tend to have kind of not great results. You can check them out yourself. I've included this file in the resources as well. In the category for general website builders, I would say never go with WordPress. It's horrible, it's clunky, and it's difficult to maintain. Squarespace tends to be expensive and not very creative. It's difficult to make exactly the website you want. It's a bit boxy. Webflow is great, but it has a 6-month learning curve. You need to know CSS and responsive website techniques. However, it's great to learn those things. Framer's kind of a new one. It's a bit of a competitor to Webflow. It's pretty expensive actually though, because it goes up to $28 a month for 10 CMS collections. So once you go over one CMS, so a CMS is basically a database. So a CMS, you need one to run your blog and you need another to hold your projects. So unless you only want just your projects and no blog, you're going to go to $28 a month. That gets quite expensive. So I'd say the best one in this category is Wix. Squarespace, if you're just not really into building things and you want something simple, or Webflow if you really want to learn about CSS and maybe even start doing front-end development or work as a web designer freelance. There's also Bubble, but that's really complicated. You can replicate things like Amazon and Etsy with that system. Huge learning curve as well, I think. And I recently heard about this other one called ReadyMag. It's not that cheap. I don't think that it comes out with great quality results either, looking at the best portfolios there. So I think in the other options, the best one is probably Notion, because it's free for individuals, but it's also a bit creatively limited as well. I like to keep it fresh every month by bringing up, different ways to pimp your portfolio, land the job that you want, etc. And I'm just going to quickly go through the free resources and links. So for anyone that can't make it to one of my sessions, I have a private community to showcase ongoing design work and folio updates, and you can find that at artphilly.click community in the in-between times. And then sometimes you You might feel that you have a few things that you could improve on, like, visual design is always something that you can continuously improve so that you can present yourself better. So you can book a free 30-minute session with me via this link. So you can book a free tailored learning plan with me where we discuss your goals and create tailored sessions for you so that you can improve specifically in the areas that you want to improve. And the reason I do that is because private one-to-one tuition with me is quite expensive. So what I do is I pre-record specific skills and I offer those at 50% of the price of a one-to-one session with me. Next thing I've got is how to embed a clickable prototype into any folio page. So that's a really popular YouTube video. It's really an essential skill. I would say every single project that you have in your portfolio, you should include a clickable prototype embedded into that portfolio page. So that video explains everything there. And then I've got all my free resources on this link. Lots and lots of useful things there. Things that, I teach students all week, every week. And so I know what students need and the questions that they ask. And I create resources in this area for that. And that's my YouTube channel, which you can also find from the link above. I've also got these paid resources. The reason why I ask for a small donation for those is because it takes me time to create them. So I talked earlier about the portfolio layout. Now this is just to speed up your portfolio creation process. So you've got a home page, you've got a projects page, you've got a project detail page, an about me page and a contact page. And this is essentially all of the best elements that any UX or product designer should have in their portfolio. And by paying $10, you save yourself multiple hours of work laying that out yourself. Obviously from that point you go ahead and tailor it to your own needs. Then I've got quickly find the best portfolio builder for you. This is the file I just talked through about all of the portfolio builders that are possible to use and which one is best based on your skills, based on whether you want to code or not code, or pay more or less, or have it completely free. One of my new things is I've got a pre-built mobile navbar and lesson here. That's just €5. So basically what happens is when you are clicking on any of these things on the navigation, it goes live. Obviously you can change the icons and the words and the colours, but it's essentially pre-built, so it saves you a lot of time. But there's also a lesson in there that teaches you exactly how to build that properly in Figma with variants. So it's very, very flexible. And then last one I've got top 10 fonts for app and web design. If you're a total beginner in design, first thing you need is fonts. So these are some of the top fonts most used in app design. So with app design, you have a smaller choice of fonts because a smaller choice of fonts work well in apps for readability. There's a selection of those there for apps and websites. I've got all my courses here. I've got a useful article here about how to deal with NDAs. And if you'd like to buy me a tea for today's session, you could do that via this link. So, wow, we are dead on time. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming along. And I hope you found this useful. And if you would like to email me, you just have to hit reply on the event email that you received before. Now, the idea of this session is for you guys who haven't presented before, when you've got your design in Figma or whatever you've got it in, come back and present it so that we can all together, not just me, but everyone who comes along, we can help you critique your folio, make it better before you actually go ahead and build it. Thank you guys for coming. Please come again next month and keep coming until you've built a great portfolio, just like Dan has. And I hope to see you next month. Have a good evening or have a good day.